हाय गाइस, वेलकम बैक टू लिट ज्ञान। आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे कुछ MCQs ऑन पोस्ट कलोनियलिज्म। आई हैव ऑल्सो प्रोवाइडेड सम एक्सप्लेनेशन वेर एवर नीडेड. डू सब्सक्राइब एंड लाइक if you like this video. So let's begin. The first question is, the first section of Fanon's The Wretched of Earth is entitled. Your options are A on violence, B on liberation, C on existentialism, D on absurdism. Well, I have put this question because बहुत बार ऐसा हुआ है कि किसी important book के first section या last section का नाम पूछ लिया जाता है. So you must keep this point in mind. The answer is A on violence. Your next question is, as one of the temporary consequences of colonization, Fanon divides the native into three groups, which is not one of them. Your options are A. Proletariat, B. Native worker, C. Colonized intellectual, and D. Lumpen proletariat. So the answer is A. Proletariat. All the other three are groups divided by him. Let's see the explanation. The first is the native group, who is valued by the settler for their labor. The second group is the colonized intellectual. These are, by Western standards, the more educated members of the native group, who are in many ways recruited by the settler to be spokesperson for their views. The third group described by Fanon are the lumpen proletariat. This group is described in Marxism as the poorest class, those who are outside of the system because they have so little. This group is often dismissed by Marxists as unable to assist in the organizing of the workers, but Fanon sees them differently. For him, the lumpen proletariat will be the first to discover violence in the face of the settler. जब फैनन के हिसाब से जो फर्स्ट ग्रुप है वो नेटिव वर्कर का होता है, जिनको उनकी लेबर, फिजिकल लेबर के वजह से वैल्यू किया जाता है कॉलोनाइजर्स के द्वारा. सेकंड होते हैं जो कॉलोनाइज्ड इंटेलेक्चुअल, जिन्हें वो अपना ही स्पोक्स पर्सन बना लेते हैं अपनी प्रोपेगेंडा फैलाने के लिए इन देयर नेटिव पीपल. एंड थर्ड जो होते हैं वो लुम्पेन प्रोलिटेरिएट होते हैं, जो पुअरेस्ट ऑफ द पुअर होते हैं, जिनका कोई भी से नहीं होता है, बट उन्हीं लोगों को सबसे ज़्यादा सफ़र करना पड़ता है, सबसे ज़्यादा वायलेंस सफ़र करना पड़ता है, एंड दे आर द फर्स्ट टू डिस्कवर वायलेंस. मूविंग ऑन, द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज, in the foreword to the 2004 edition of The Wretched of the Earth, who criticized Sartre's introduction, stating that it limits the reader's approach to the book to focus on its promotion of violent resistance to oppression. As we know, द रेचेड ऑफ द अर्थ का जो प्रीफेस है वो सार्त्रे ने दिया है, लेकिन इसका जो 2004 एडिशन आया था उसमें एक फॉरवर्ड ऐड किया गया है विच क्रिटिसाइजेस सार्त्रेस इंट्रोडक्शन. तो ये फॉरवर्ड किसने दिया है? योर ऑप्शंस आर ए. एडवर्ड सईद, बी. आशीष नंदी, सी. होमी के भाभा, और डी. एमी सिजर. लेट्स सी द आंसर. इट इज़ सी. होमी के भाभा. Let's see the next question. Strategic essentialism is a popular concept in post-colonial studies. It was coined by whom in the 1980s? Your options are A. Edward Said, B. Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak, C. Leopold Singh Ghor, or D. Chinua Achebe. Let's see the answer. It is B. Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak. Well, strategic essentialism refers to a political tactic in which minority groups, nationalities, or ethnic groups mobilize on the basis of shared gendered, cultural, or political identity to represent themselves. While strong differences may exist between members of these groups and amongst themselves they engage in continuous debates, it is sometimes advantageous for them to temporarily essentialize themselves, despite it being based on erroneous logic, and to bring forward their group identity in a simplified way to achieve certain goals, such as equal rights or anti-globalization. Luce Irigaray refers to it as mimesis. You should also remember this point. Moving on, the first section of Fanon's Black Skin, White Masks is entitled A. The Fact of Blackness, B. The Negro and Language, C. The Negro and Psychopathology, D. The Psychology of Colonization. Let's see the answer. It is B. The Negro and Language. In this chapter, Fanon discusses how colored people were perceived by the whites. He says that the black man has two dimensions, one with his fellows, the other with the white man. जो एक black man होता है वो अपने लोगों के साथ अलग behave करता है और एक white के साथ अलग behave करता है. To speak a language is to take on a world, a culture. जब भी हम कोई language सीखते हैं, so we just not learn the language, we also learn the culture attached to it. सो कॉलोनाइजर्स वही करते थे, पहले वो ट्राई करते थे कि अपनी लैंग्वेज सिखाएं और वो लैंग्वेज के साथ अपना कल्चर भी ट्रांसपोर्ट कर देते थे. मूविंग ऑन, द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज अरेंज द फॉलोइंग वर्क्स ऑफ Fanon in chronological order of their publication. Well, I have put this question because it's very important to remember all the works of a important writer. यहाँ Fanon के सारे works मैंने mention किए. You just have to put them in chronological order. So let's see the answer. The answer is A. Actually, I have given them in chronological order so that it's easier for you to remember. Black Skin, White Mask, 1952. A Dying Colonialism, 1959. The Wretched of the Earth, 1961. Toward the African Revolution, 1964. And Alienation and Freedom, 2018. Moving on, who has written the play Un Temte, an adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest? Your options are A. Leopold Senghor, B. Rudyard Kipling, C. Amy Césaire, D. Frantz Fanon. The answer is Amy Césaire. Let's see the explanation. It is an adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest from a post-colonial perspective set on an island in the Caribbean. In this version, Césaire specified that Prospero is a white master, Ariel is a mulatto, Caliban is a black slave. You should also remember these descriptions. Who is what? These characters are the focus of the play as Césaire emphasized issues of race, power, decolonization, and anti-imperialism. The next question is, which of the following works applied a revised form of Michel Foucault's historicist critique of discourse to analyze cultural imperialism? Your options are A. Edward Said's Orientalism, B. Frantz Fanon's Black Skin, White Masks, Karl Marx' Das Kapital, Ejaz Ahmed's In Theory. Let's see the answer. It is Edward Said's Orientalism. This mode of imperialism imposed its power not by force but by the effective means of disseminating in subjugated colonies a Eurocentric discourse that assumed the normality and preeminence of everything Occidental correlatively with its representation of the Oriental as an exotic and inferior other. The term Orientalism is now sometimes applied to cultural imperialism by means of the control of discourse not only in the Orient but anywhere in the world. Let's see the next question. The Empire Writes Back, Theory and Practice in Post-Colonial Literatures is a 1989 non-fiction book on post-colonialism, authored by, you can see the options. Let's see the answer. The answer is B. Bill Ashcroft, Gareth Griffiths, and Helen Tiffin. In this book, it is actually a major theoretical account of a wide range of post-colonial texts and their relationship with bigger issues of post-colonial culture, and is said to be one of the most significant and important works published in the field of post-colonialism. The title references Salman Rushdie's 1982 article, The Empire Writes Back with a Vengeance. The next question is, which theorist distinguished two types of hybridity, organic or unconscious hybridity and intentional hybridity? Well, we all know the concept of hybridity was given by Homi Bhabha, but which theorist has distinguished the two types of hybridity? Your options are A. Homi Bhabha, B. Gayatri Spivak, C. Mikhail Bakhtin, D. Jacques Lacan. The answer is C. Mikhail Bakhtin. Now let's see what are these two types of hybridity. The organic hybridity is unintentional, unconscious hybridization, and he regards it as the most important mode in the historical life and evolution of all languages. The next one is intentional hybridization, which consists of juxtaposing deliberately different idioms, discourses, and perspectives within the same semiotic space without merging them. The next question is, who has authored the essay Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism, which described colonial imperialism as an advanced form of capitalism, desperate for growth at all costs, and so requires more and more human exploitation to ensure continually consistent profit for investment? Your options are A. Edward Said, B. Frederick Jameson, C. Michel Foucault, D. Vladimir Lenin. Let's see the answer. It is D. Vladimir Lenin, who criticized Foucault and Deleuze for committing epistemic violence, that is, projecting Eurocentric knowledge onto the third world countries. A. Edward Said, B. Homi Bhabha, C. Gayatri Spivak, D. Dipesh Chakraborty. The answer is C. Gayatri Spivak. In her essay, Can the Subaltern Speak?, Spivak criticizes Foucault and Deleuze for committing epistemic violence, that is, projecting Eurocentric knowledge onto the third world countries. She is of the view that Western academic writing is produced in order to support their economic interest. Thus, the knowledge is likely any other commodity that is exported from Europe to the third world countries. Knowledge is never innocent. It expresses the interest of its producer. This westernized knowledge tends to construct our identities, and for the third world people, Europe becomes the ideal. Next question is Spivak's seminal essay, Can the Subaltern Speak?, was published in which journal? A. Punch, B. Wedge, C. Magazine, D. Selfesta. Let's see the answer. It is B. Wedge. The second last question is the given lines are from a poem entitled The Ballad of East and West. Who is its poet? Oh, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. A. Rudyard Kipling, B. Matthew Arnold, C. Joseph Conrad, or D. Derek Walcott. Let's see the answer. It is Rudyard Kipling. The complete lines of the poem are, O East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet, till earth and sky stand presently at God's great judgment seat. But there is neither East nor West, border nor breed nor birth, when two strong men stand face to face, though they come from the ends of the earth. The first line of the poem is often quoted, sometimes to ascribe racism to Kipling in regard to his views on Asians. Moving on to the last question of the slide. In Culture and Imperialism, Edward Said analyzes which of Jane Austen's work from a post-colonialist perspective. Your options are A. Pride and Prejudice, B. Mansfield Park, C. Emma, and D. Sense and Sensibility. Let's see the answer. It is B. Mansfield Park. Under the title Jane Austen and the Empire, Said carefully foregrounds the background of Austen's novel, which is the estate in Antigua which Sir Thomas Bertram owns and through which the estate of Mansfield Park is maintained. The central irony then is that the estate in England, which represents an ideal of order and civilization, is sustained by another estate a world away, so that Mansfield Park would not have been possible without the slave trade, sugar, and the colonial planter class. Sir Thomas' property in the Caribbean would have had to be a sugar plantation maintained by slave labor. So basically, without slave trade, सर थॉमस का जो मेंशन है द मैंसफील्ड पार्क, इसका एग्जिस्टेंस पॉसिबल ही नहीं था. वो कॉलोनाइज्ड को एक्सप्लॉइट करके अपना वेल्थ ला रहे थे, जिससे ये मेंशन मेंटेन किया जा रहा था. So that is it for today. You can leave your feedback or suggestions or any doubts in the comment section below, and please subscribe if you like this video. That is it for today. Happy learning.